in Namibia, we are a Christian country. And gays and lesbians and intersex people, they don't have any room in Namibia. So it goes without saying, for some people, since the majority says no to gay rights, no to the rights of bisexual people, that unfortunately is not what democracy is. So what I'm trying to say, in as much as one of the tenets, one of the core principles of democracy is the majority rule, there's also limits to majority rule. The next talking point, very related to that, democracy is, as you also said, ruled by the people. What does that mean? What do you think does this mean?
Rule by the people means, for instance, when we're having an election, the people elect the political party, the individual representatives. So they put people, they vote people into power that rule them.
It rule them. Okay? You want to add to that, sir? Ruled by the people.
Yeah, all these people. Take part in the law
So this elected, I've seen you hand. Okay, before I continue, yes, sir?
I think you mentioned it.
You want to just say it louder?
I would say that it's a system whereby the people come up with the rules and the laws to govern each other, or govern amongst themselves.
Okay. Anyone wants to add? Sir, you want to add?
In my point of view, more or less has to do with the first point. But in this scenario, the individuals who are gathered are demanding whatever they are saying to be amended, irrespective of what is being said by the laws and the what. They want what they are pushing for should be amended. Thank you very much.
Great. So rule by the people, basically, in simple terms, it's like, yes, parliamentarians, we've elected you because all of us, as in 2.3 million people, we can't all go to go and sit in parliament. It's impossible. That's why we are having a representative democracy. But it simply means when you go to the National Assembly, when you go to the National Council, when you serve in the Municipality Council, you do not serve there to look after your own interests only. You must rule in the interest of the people. And the people has the right to remove you if the people were to feel that you do not represent our interests anymore. That's what it also means. Right? Yes, sir?
Prof, I got a question now with regards to the interest of the people.
Okay.
Is it the interest of the people that chose you, or is it the interest of your political party? Because, like, in most instances, I feel like it is according to the interest of the political party, so the people that have chosen you to be in parliament.
Very important point. Because some politicians are thinking is that there's this contradiction. It is the party discipline that comes first before the interest of the people. And that is one of the problems that we have in our system. But a school like this is trying to make us all understand. If we really talk about true democracy, our politicians should know they are not there to serve their political interests only. Yes, of course, you are there for the party ticket. But the party ticket is not the alpha and the omega. Good? Yes, sir?
Yeah, I think to contribute to what Sina said, we must also differentiate between, of course, when politicians go out to campaign, they use their party manifesto. So that we can also not just sideline, because the party manifesto speaks to, again, we must again now have to understand that government objectives and own policies and NDP, like hierarchical perspective, which must be implemented. So unless you say that this thing must coexist, but you cannot take the two away. Say no, because when politicians go, for example, when city councillors were campaigning, they went to their political manifesto to say we are going to build houses, we are going to give you land. But then the city itself has its own institutional objectives by when is because of the budget. So I think to say that it doesn't make sense because then these things have to coexist. Because you promise people in your political manifesto, but you say institutional policies that you must actually implement.
I think the way I understand him is that there are certain issues that is much more important than just mere political interest. And I'll give you a practical example. In the National Assembly, they are discussing the most horrible, at least by December, they were discussing the most horrible thing that happened ever in the Namibian history. And that is the genocide that took place in 1904 up to 1908. The people are saying Germany owes reparation to the Ovaherero and the Nama people. Now, the ruling party, and I'm not talking politics, is having a very specific position on that. But then the people are saying, this is not a political matter. This is supposed to be a matter that must be addressed in the interest of the affected communities. So don't politicize certain things. I think that is what the gentleman is saying. That is what the gentleman is saying, but we don't want to go too much into detail. I think the point is made. Yes, on certain things, party, political, whatever, but on certain things, really, what is the national principle? Right? The next thing, the key features, and you guys have mentioned some of the key features of democracy that you already mentioned and that you also heard in the video. Can we remember what some of those key features are? Some of those key features are? Someone that didn't speak, man? Accountability. What is your understanding of accountability?
Accountability basically means you taking ownership of what you did or what something happened.
And I want you to give you a name in the context of democracy.
Let's just say the government did something wrong and they take accountability of their doing to find that mistakes.
In a democracy, leaders are held accountable for their actions. They must explain, why did we give the license to Recon Africa? That is basically what it means. Account to the people because the people put you there in the first place. Another feature, and I don't want to go through all of them, another feature, yes sir?
I like the one that I always mentioned, the multi-party system.
A key feature of democracy is a multi-party democracy, and the Constitution talks about it. Right? And so we can continue. I don't want to take too much time, and then the video talks about the fruits of democracy. In other words, what flows from a democratic system. Amongst others, okay.
What happened is the fruits of democracy and the key features of democracy state that respect for some basic rules, freedom, peace, and respecting of human dignity and all. I have a question that why is it that every time in the parliament there is no peace? We see people that are under both human dignity, and we see other people that are always, okay, there is no peace basically. And this is showing a bad image to the youth because they think it's entertaining, but actually they're giving a bad reputation for themselves. And then this also causes the
Good point. The lady that was, yes? Do you want to respond to what she said?
I would also like to make sure. Yeah, I would just like to add to what she said. It's not always about disrespecting people or people in parliament, but it's about people getting tired of people abusing, you understand, abusing powers that they have, like corruption. You've been talking about corruption, but there's no change. So it's not that people are disrespecting each other in parliament, but people are tired. And then the youth need to see that we have to stand up for it. We really have to stand up to that.
Okay. I've seen different hands. Someone else that didn't. Minnie.
I have a question regarding the point she made.
Okay.
But like, why do you have to express your tiredness through rudeness? Can you not express it in a more meaningful way that stipulates as to what you are saying, the business that you are even talking about in democracy? Should you be rude and out there, you know? The way they be doing it in parliament, really, it's just kind of questionable, indeed, like how she had said it.
Okay.
I just believe so.
Okay. Yes, sir.
No, just the first speaker, the great. Hello, who was that?
Yeah.
Was Julius Malema of EFF South Africa, was he wrong to say Zuma paid the money?
Yeah.
Was he wrong? Was he wrong? Come guys, was he wrong? He was wrong.
How?
He was not wrong.
Okay, now explain to us why you think he was wrong.
If Malema could not stood up and say, pay back the money, Zuma pay back the money, Zuma would have finished term and finishing his term. You know, that's what Malema realized. Okay, leave Malema. Yeah, we have the vision. The people who have backed up our country. Some of us are saying, those people must be oh, and you. Find one of Kuru and
Okay. Okay. She was first.
Okay.
I first want to give other people also a chance that didn't contribute this year.
Okay, so guys, just be short so that more people can speak.
Yes.
We want to accommodate more people
Yes.
with little time. And don't become excited.
I don't mean to become rude. I try not to become rude. I will not become rude. However, I feel like the room is now becoming quite debative, if that's an English word. And okay, everybody has an opinion on what respect is, but I feel like coming from the community in which I come from, I feel like we need to understand. For you to actually know what respect is, you need to understand what community you come from. Me being an ethnic African child, I do not have the right, or I cannot, even if I do have the right, I actually don't have that right, looking at the community that I come from, to stand up to an adult and say, pay back my money. I can't do that. I should do it respectfully. Yes, it's a public. It should be respectful. You pay up for your money. You pay up for your money provided you respect.
Okay, guys. No, this is not money. No, this is not our activist school how we feel the issues. Okay? When somebody is speaking, you hold your voice, you manage your time. The only thing you can do is to raise your hand, not to shout somebody down or whatever. Everybody has got the right to say something. And if we cannot control that, you guys are the wrong people here. That's not how we do business. Control yourself. What you have to say is not important. The story, just say your point short and concise. And I don't want to hear anybody speaking while somebody is speaking if you do not agree with that person.
Yes, again, we did mention that your right begins when the next person's right ends. So you show respect. If you show respect, respect will be shown to you as well. Thank you.
John, what else?
Yeah.
How many minutes? Excuse me?
That's fine. That's fine. Not a problem. It's a lot of time. I want just to add. I just want to add. Article 21, and let's go to Article 21 of our Constitution. Article 21 of the Constitution guarantees a lot of freedoms. I think Article 21, sub-article 2, there's something that says that everyone has the right to freedom of expression and of opinion. Something like that. I don't have it now in front of me. But these rights must also be read together with other rights. Because if you go back to Article 8 of the Namibian Constitution, it talks, for example, about the right to human dignity. And it goes further and says that no one should be subjected to torture, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment. So we must read all these rights. We said one of the key features of democracy is also respect for human rights. So in as much as you differ within, the point was in Parliament. I think the point that you made, in as much as you differ with the next parliamentarian, the other parliamentarian is also having the right to be treated in a dignified manner. I think that is the point that you say. In as much as you have the right to freedom of expression, do so in a manner that respects the human dignity of the next person. And that's really the point. Correct? Yeah? Who was, I spoke to us. Yes. Sorry. Who? That's gentleman.
Sure.
I have my point is just that corruption will always be there, but the Namibian leaders are
Just give me an example. I don't know.
You said there is corruption. There will always be corruption, but our corruption, we are overdoing it.
That almost sounds as if you are justifying corruption. Okay?
What you're trying to say is it will always happen, but then the thing is we are overdoing it in the sense that we are literally building a new swamp headquarters over our hospital where people are dead. That's what I'm saying. Does that make sense? Does it?
Yeah. Let me also just say something. I don't want a discussion like this to venture into party politics. Let us please address the issues, and we don't, because we are here from different political parties. Right, the gentleman at the back?
Yeah.
Oh, you still?
Yeah, because we did give you a chance to speak on his behalf. So now your chance is over.
Sorry.
We'll come back to you later.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We will recognize you.
To me, I feel maybe Namibian people or maybe African people, they don't understand about the democracy. Maybe they are thinking like road, they miss like something like this. To me, if I understand democracy is not free to be a thief or free to be a stubborn or free to take a wrong decision. Yeah, but the democracy is free. and working together and taking a collect or good decision.
Collective decision.
Yeah, collect.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I would only allow one more person, and then because there's some other points that we must still discuss.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no, not you. John, which one? Any?
Someone that didn't speak before. Okay, this gentleman spoke.
Okay, should I?
So everyone is spoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I'm lucky. No, I just want to, my sister, on the questions. It becomes phenomenal in African country when the persons start to speak the fast, then it's weird. And I know that my sister wants to bring it. The fast with factors is different.
What?
Say it again.
The bus.
The fast to speak of expression.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
may the soul rest in peace to bring it to the context of Namibia. Kadenabo speak with emotions, but it doesn't mean that he's angry. It's expressions of how God created him or her. So then people say, oh no, the guy is rudely or he doesn't respect and so forth. But factuals, that's where the Namibian parliament changed now. In olden days, my father was members of parliament. In olden days, it was anything it was this kind of anything like grandfather is saying yes, yes. If it's black, it's black. But now, because now naturally, and I like multi-party systems, now people have invested power. They have divided the powers of understanding from the ruling party, from the the so-called minority party. Yet it is minority and minority seat. But their views now become factors. So when you start to express it to people, then they say, no, these people now they are rude, they are not what. But bear in mind, citizens let these effects into their attitude.
Thank you very much. No more input because there's another one. Another key feature of democracy is good governance. Your understanding of good governance. What do we mean with good governance? Man, this lady here. Your understanding of good governance.
Yeah, just your opinion. Anything. No, you're not ready now. Okay, she's not ready now.
Okay. Anyone? Ashi hand?
Okay, she's ready.
Thank you. Good government.
Governance.
Is when, like we were saying, and like we heard in the video, when the laws and the rules that have been laid down on how the nation should be governed are being followed from Lord 1 until the last Lord. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay. This gentleman?
Okay, let's give the gentleman because
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, it's okay. Good governance.
Good governance, I feel good governance is when you rule in favor of the best for people, as in proper living standards, people that access to proper health facilities, good quality education, so on and so forth, proper infrastructures, and so on and so forth. Okay. Not just in tangible stuff, but also things such as educating us as people on that I should respect him and he should respect me as well.
Good point.
you want to read or to this gentleman?
Okay, I believe good governance is the word good, and governance needs to run something. So maybe a more efficient system in how resources are distributed even to marginalized communities. So good governance basically in a nutshell is how things are smoothly done. Okay.
I've seen Stalin's hand.
Can you give to Stalin?
I just want to stress, we do not have right and wrong answers. We are discussing to get better understanding of what we are talking about. Correct, Stalin?
I think for me, what comes to mind is good governance. That's the question of accountability.
Okay. Yes, this lady and then this lady.
Good governance to me is a transparent governance. It's to be transparent, inclusive, accountable, and efficient.
Good.
Which maybe
Good governance listens to the people and involves the people.
I think this is exactly what they are saying in the, or what they were saying in the video clip. Good governance is associated with efficiency. You've applied for your ID. Efficiency means you will not wait for 2 years for your ID. If there's a problem in waiting for 2 years for your ID, then it means the government is inefficient, or those that are responsible for issuing those things, they can't be said to be efficient. Good governance also has to do, as you've mentioned, a transparent form of governance. What is your understanding, by the way, of transparency?
Yeah, to be clear.
To be clear. Clear in terms of what? Clear in terms of what? Someone else first? Clear in terms of what? Clear in terms of what? This gentleman.
Clear as in the constitution that governs us, that it should be clear, and that every person should be able to understand clearly of what is expected of them.
Talk to me, the next person that is going to talk about that lady there, in the back. Transparency in terms of decision making. Talk to me about that. What is your understanding?
The government, maybe if it takes decisions concerning the community or the people, it must be clear what they are doing or what are they going to plan, so that we know what are we into.
So decision, yes sir, you want to add?
I was going to say on the decision making that the decisions are not made privately, so that makes it more transparent. You see it in the National Assembly, it's live recorded, it's distributed on news in different languages, so the government is transparent. And also when it comes to the budget and the distribution of money, they are also transparent.
So these are the kind of things that has to do with good governance. And then there's someone also mentioned accountability and explained that. And then another element of good governance is the issue of a responsive government. What does that mean? Responsive government. A responsive government. Yeah, please.
So I think what a responsive government is that it responds to the needs of the people in the community or the people in the country. That's what it basically means.
Great. This gentleman and then the lady.
I believe government should be responsive. Responsive in the sense that it addresses issues almost immediately or as efficient as possible.
Okay.
Okay, I think the responsive government, just like I mentioned earlier, listens to the people as well as involves the people.
We've heard you. Do you remember the statement? Yes. We have heard you. The people are saying, and Herbert mentioned, the people are saying we are poor. There's no employment. And the majority of people are saying, please introduce a basic income grant. A responsive government said, we have heard you. We are going to see what we will do in terms of addressing the high and grueling, embarrassing levels of poverty in the country. If this is what the people want, we will not continue telling them that a basic income grant will make you lazy. That is what a responsive government is called. Right? Anyone you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, it is a good idea to have a responsive government instead of an active government, because this government of ours, for example, being so lazy, sleeping on duty is a concern, because now I'm sure the advocate there is advocating for a responsive things to be done for them, instead of them being proactive, out in society. Is it a good idea to have a responsive government?
But do you think the two are mutually exclusive? Are the two mutually exclusive? Is it you either have a proactive government or you don't have a responsive government? That's what we mean with. Do they exclude one another?
No, they are not.
Or can you have both?
They are not. But it's just that the concern right now is that a lot of things or policies are always emanating from the ground. They don't take that proactive lifestyle. Like the basic income grant, I'm sure it was advocated by the late, I don't know whether he's still alive, the bishop, Kameta.
Still alive. Okay.
A long time, yeah. But that was being proactive. That was proactive, like the understanding society. But now this.
Okay, Jauch, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to say that maybe the question of the word responsive is not maybe just just responding, but like what you're saying, that it also includes anticipating issues before the people tell you.
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, that's what I'm trying to say. The two does not necessarily exclude one another. Yes, the government, we elected you there, so please be proactive because you know your people. But also listen. When the people spoke, listen and respond to the cries of the people. That is what they've done. Okay, let's quickly see. I think it's the second last one. The video clip is asking the question. Oh, excuse me. Oh, yes. Go back. In the clip, and I think someone mentioned also, I'm just rephrasing it. In the video clip, there was something to the extent that democracy is not a magic bullet. What do you think does that mean? Ma'am, democracy is not the magic bullet.
Any opinion?
Democracy is not a magic bullet.
Keep it just a short. What I understand by democracy, living in a democratic country is not the only way you can survive as a country. You addressing issues and presenting yourself in different ways can also be a way of growing your country rather than
Oh, okay. So basically, we can do without democracy. Is that what you said?
Yeah, in some cases, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Someone else? The question is, man, your understanding of what they said in the video, not in so many words as I phrased it there, but the point is democracy is not a magic bullet. Okay. Anyone? That gentleman didn't answer.
This one.
Yeah.
Yes, democracy is not a magic bullet. It simply means that it's not something that comes easy. You have to work towards achieving democracy.
Okay.
Good.
Anybody else? You want to say something?
If I got it correctly, you also need to work to improve. Is that what you said? Or to get democracy? Okay?
I just want to say that also. But one thing which I want to add is that not everything which is being spoken or which is being heard cannot unfortunately not be resolved in a manner that the ones raising up this point would want it to be resolved. So you might be unhappy of the outcome of how something has been dealt with.
Okay. Anyone else? But maybe first the lady before, because
I don't know whether I will right, but I think like democracy, like for instance, the municipality bill comes high and you have to be complaining about it, but there is nothing being done about something that we're going to
Okay.
For me, I think it means if we shout democracy, all problems will go away. But it rather means we need to work as a collective to address those problems for the democratic system.
Right, the last person here.
I'm thinking that, okay, democracy is not a magic bullet. So obviously we are trying to tell us that things do not happen easily. And in the sense of it being a bullet, it's not that we can always just shoot or throw things and then we expect them to happen at the pace that a bullet makes things happen.
Okay. Yes.
So
you've got two more people.
Yeah, this gentleman and then the lady.
Can we keep the gentleman first?
Democracy is no magic bullet. I feel like it says, okay, in the video, there was a part where it said fight for democracy, right? But then another part was like, I think for me, like, things will take time. Just because you want for democracy doesn't mean everything will change. Things will take time. You have to debate and resolve issues, and it takes time, so you should also just be patient.
Which I am going to be as precise as possible, but I don't think I'll get it right.
We'll help you.
But in Oshuango they say the government must take care of it. Okay? Or rather, if there's a situation, we the Namibian people, especially the Oshuango speaking people, like to say, the government must take care of it, or the government must sort it out. And that's what makes democracy, that's why democracy is not a magic bullet. Because if people have the attitude of the government must resolve the issue, then obviously we are no longer being democratic, we're just sleeping on it and letting the people in power do the work, and then when they do not deliver, we become upset.
Okay. That's a very good. Thank you very much. Also, democracy is a man-made system, or maybe I shouldn't say man-made. It's made by people. And so for that reason, everything that is created by a human being can never be perfect. So even when we talk about democracy, democracy is said to be the best form of government. I think that is also what the video said. But even so, because it's a man-made, woman-made system, it must mean that it is not the perfect system. It's imperfect. Because as humans, we are, is it fallible? Is it not fallible? And so there's no way that we can now, simply because we talk about democracy, everything is honky-tonk. There's no such thing. I think the last point, Herbert from
because I think you raised such an important point in the problem of many democracies. Because it's exactly the way you describe it. We understand democracy is we vote for them, the government. And then we expect that government that we elected to bring about development, jobs, housing, good education, healthcare, all of it. And if we're not happy, we wait for the next election. And we elect someone else. And we wait again for development. And it might not come. Because very often when you ask opposition parties in different countries, what is your program? No, we don't like how the ruling party is doing this. And we don't like how the ruling party is doing that. But how would you do it? Well, more or less the same, but better. So you go through the same cycle and the same disappointment. And this is very nice how you explain it. Because then we must change the way we understand democracy towards what's called participatory democracy. Much more than election. of next to nothing for housing, and then we wonder why everybody is still living in squatter areas. But there are organizations, like they call, for example, Shack Dwellers Association, Federation. And they build houses differently for themselves, much cheaper, without tailors, without big companies, themselves, self-help. So people said, no, we're not waiting for government. We do it ourselves. And we will today discuss more examples of that. And very good what you pointed out, that democracy is not just election. And then say again your expression in Chicago. You are so captious.
Meaning, let the government please look at it nicely and tell us what should be done.
The last one, and then we want to conclude the discussion.
Yeah, why I do agree with that sentiment of Shivamo is because when you really look at the public policies all over the media, they need to be amended by the central government. That's why we are crippled. I'm an activist for persons with disability. But when you look at the Disability Act, it's very difficult to take it on your own. Even if you start doing your own thing, you'll be arrested. So somehow I do agree with the Zimbabwe people that say that the Bangelo, whatever they say, they should take care of or whatever they're taking, whatever the citizens are asking. So I feel that the government should be equally involved. It's a 50-50 thing. Like, you know, for example, we are trying to register labor unions, and it's hell. And they are just there sitting. Even the labor commissioner is never in the office. So what's happening with the workers on the ground? The ones in the logistics, because this union is not yet registered. So we just started working as consultants just to fight for these people. Because the Bangelo, whatever, they are not doing a job.
Okay. Good. Having said all this, that democracy is not a magic bullet, it's not a perfect system. Having said all this, the video is asking us, can we do, in your opinion, can we do without democracy?
Yes.
No. Can we do without democracy? May I ask for your hand? In your honest opinion.
In my opinion, I feel like we cannot do without democracy, because without democracy we have a huge area of society living together. Things like rape, bullying, fighting, all them will have no control. No one will be there to understand, to say that this is not allowed. Then all that will not be controlled in the country. We cannot do without them.
Okay. You can go ahead and just spread.
Okay.
Because they are trying to.
Okay.
For me personally, it's a yes and a no situation. Okay, democracy is one political system. Of course, there are other alternatives such as socialism that also exist. So democracy, in as much as not perfect, I think it is one of the best systems out there. In as much as opposed to the alternative. Because like without democracy, we get things like dictatorships and other form of political work. So like for example, like what was this socialism? Of course, I don't mention it, but the democracy, to some extent, it is functional, but not very perfect.
I would like to reiterate what you were saying. Can we do the democracy? For Namibia, no. For other countries, probably. Because I think the democracy offers a good guiding tool to address the issues on the ground right now. Yeah.
Okay, just looking at our current situation and how democracy is failing us as a country, if we maybe had to venture out into something a different form of government, it might be good, it might be bad, but I do agree, even without democracy, to a certain degree might be good, and to a certain degree I do not agree. Because if we look at countries like China, they are not democratic, but economically they are way better than us. Countries like effective, but there are real lessons, but that also means that if we go to that form of governance where we are so limited, if we do all the ideas stage, we are already being failed.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah. Can we?
There was also this time.
Yes. Can we do without democracy? In this instance, the good example is better about the genocide. I'm not forgetting any past. It's our hold the things. Yet you said the ruling party had position, but the majority of the affected community, they might be not in favor of the ruling party. So that's what I'm saying in that instance. The affected community themselves, they have their traditional issue that represent that have to say feelings towards the genocide issue. So, but due to the fact that the minority of the people that we have 11 different types of tribes in Namibia or ethnic side, but the majority are coming, they came from minority from the 11th. So now in this instance, the affected communities of everyone in numbers, due to the fact that they are not structured mostly into the ruling party, they have their views, but their views can be undermined. That's why you see that due to the fact that we have the government system, they overturn this into their ruling party positions. But in that regard, their traditional leaders, if they will be brought to the table and heard their views, this is a become a national interest.
Okay. We want to conclude.
Yes,
there's a few hands on this side.
I wanted to make an emphasis. Yes, we are speaking about democracy, we can do, but we also need to decentralize it and in context. Because what we are facing is not a political fight, it's an economical emancipation that we do not have. But the problem is here that the government, our government, and the private sector, our private sector is very small. Must be honest, because our economy, the government actually is like in charge of the whole economy. Because government employs about 80%. So we must also think about the economic system before you think about that democracy you can't do. What we need to do to correct this democracy, the bureaucratic process that we have, that is the only problem that we have. Bureaucracy we need to do away with.
My point is really brief. I feel like we cannot do away without democracy because democracy is what brings the peace, hope, transparency. All that Namibia is literally what we stand on today is democracy. Without democracy, I'm so sure we would have been some parliamentary or dictatorship, some sort of thing. But what I'm trying to say is that perhaps we need to improve our democracy programs. We need to check more on accountability, we need to check more on transparency and on responsiveness, as he had also said, which will include proactiveness, in that the government comes to the people in as much as we expect to go to them. Yeah.
Must I continue?
Yeah. Okay. Just hold the hands, but please also just very brief because we want to.
Okay.
To short and the time up there.
I want to say no, we will not be able to. Because if we can look at the reality, if it was not for it, speaking right now like as a black youth, I would not have attacked. But thanks she needs my voice to be heard. And like I just feel like it really gave us as black people like on this what's the right word? A voice for us to be seen and to be respected.
Okay.
We cannot do without democracy. I feel like we cannot do without democracy. However, I feel it's also important that we stop comparing Namibia to much greater countries. We cannot, I feel like we are not going to make it if we keep comparing Namibia to countries like, say, Russia, because if China, because the resources we have and the resources they have are not the same. And also countries like that were never colonized, and we are, I don't want to say we're healing because it's been 32 years, but we have suffered the trauma of colonialization.
Okay. We want to conclude.
Yes, because I feel like we can do democracy because People have bureaucracies that involves certain things to be done. For instance, if you, if for example, you build a hospital, the minister has to be consulted, and many people have to be consulted in order for the hospital to be built. That's part of democracy. But during that time, people are left without the basic services. So we can't do about it.
Over here.
Okay, I just feel like democracy has always been in pre-colonial times. It was a political system that was in place when the chiefs were running. It was a political system. In any democracy, there is what we call presidential democracy. That was more like president democracy back then, where the chief was in charge making a decision. That's the presidential democracy. What we are having right now is constitutional democracy. That's the one we need to enforce. Educate our people about the Constitution, and then democracy will prevail.
Thank you. The last person.
When I speak about democracy, I do not want to see people or put people in place, but I think we as humans naturally each have our own views and opinions which should be respected, and democracy gives and fulfills this need.
Great. In conclusion, sorry, because I'm way over time. In conclusion, I think from the majority of the inputs in answering that question, whether we can do without democracy, I think people are saying we can't. But of course, we need just to improve on the deficiencies that we are having in the system. That's the point that I'm getting. One of the late professors, I forgot his name now, he said about Namibia. Namibia is a democracy without democrats. Professor? No. It's the guy, this German-speaking guy, not here. But I think he passed away some 3-4 years ago. Namibia is a democracy without democrats. Seriously, guys. We can't preach democracy and you don't practice democracy. And democracy is not just for government. It starts at the grassroots level. We must practice democracy in our houses. We must practice democracy in our churches. We must practice democracy in our political parties. It is not just government that is having this obligation to be democratic and to respect the rights of the people. In conclusion, we must practice what we preach, all of us. Thank you very much. To speak in very broad terms about the Namibian Constitution and to zoom in on the 3 organs of the state. You are having the Namibian Constitution in front of you, and as I said, I'm going to focus. You are not law students, so the idea is not to make you law students, but to really just feature the broad outlines of the Constitution, which is important for our discussion. We spoke about the foundational values. We come back to it. We know that when they are building a house, any building, or not just a house, any building that is constructed must have a foundation. And the Namibian Constitution in Article 1 is talking about those foundations. It says very clearly that the Republic of Namibia is a sovereign, it's a circular, it's a democratic, and a unitary state. That is part of the foundations that makes the Republic of Namibia. And then it goes further. It says, this republic is founded upon the principles of democracy as we discussed it, but also on the rule of law and justice for all. So when we talk about the Namibian House, the Republic of Namibia, this is our guiding principles. A republic which is sovereign. We are independent as a republic. We don't get orders from any other country. Our leaders rule on behalf of the people. And the sovereignty, as we said, is within the people. That's what we mean. Unitary, I'm sure we know, secular. I'm sure we know what's the meaning of the word secular. Namibia is a secular state. What does that mean? Secular, sir?
Basically, it allows for anyone to practice any religion without fear of persecution.
Say again, sir?
Basically, it allows for people to practice any religion without fear of persecution. You can be Christian and Muslim without any discrimination.
Okay. But basically, in this context, it's like if you go to some certain other countries, they would say the Islamic Republic of blah blah. In other words, that country is governed by Islamic law. Ours is not, and I told the church leaders last week or 2 weeks ago, the Constitution doesn't say we are a Christian state. The Constitution says we are a secular state. In other words, all religions, as you said, all religions are equal. So this notion of we cannot have, and I'm again coming back to the issue of gays and lesbians. The idea that the church is having that the majority of people in Namibia are Christians is, with all due respect, and I told them, is misplaced. Because Namibia is a secular state. Namibia is not a Christian state. If it was supposed to be a Christian state, it would have said, instead of secular, it would have said a Christian state. So you can't impose your beliefs, your religious beliefs, onto other people. It's wrong. It's undemocratic. And that is what the churches need to get to know. And so on. We spoke about democracy. Who wants to explain it to all of us? Namibia is a unitary state. What does that mean? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, sir?
Culturally, socially,
say again?
We are united the best country.
We didn't hear you say?
Culturally, socially, we are diverse. Diversity, in other words.
Okay, so for you, unity means diversity. Okay? Another person then?
Culturally, we support people of mind.
Okay. Okay. Someone else?
For me, it means togetherness.
It means togetherness. Together as one. Yes?
I'm saying Namibia is a unitary, which means all the borders, all the corners, all the regions is Namibia. No border or region must be united.
Okay. But okay, I want you to think about unitary as opposed to, I've seen two ends, very quickly. Namibia is a unitary state also as opposed to Namibia, one nation. Okay, sorry for laughing. One Namibia, one nation. But you're right. Namibia is one Namibia, one nation. Yes?
By one central government. Yes. Not that every region has no government, that's now federal government.
Exactly.
One by one.
That is what I wanted to come. It's like unitary as opposed to a federal system. Other countries like the United States of America, Nigeria is having states. And each state is having its own parliament. Each state, in South Africa, they are semi-federals. So in a federal system, you've got states, and each of those states are having their own constitution, their own parliaments, and whatever. That is a federal state. But Namibia is not a federal state. Namibia is a unitary state. We've got one parliament making laws for the whole country and so forth. Yes, we've got provinces, but not provinces, excuse me, we've got regions, but the regions are subject to the central government. Yes, that's what it means. And that's why is it 1990, when we have the situation in the Denka Treaty?
1999?
Was it in 1999? Where a group of people in the then Caprivi region wanted to break away from Namibia. We were all saying, but why would you want to do that? Yeah, I know. Okay. So I don't need to explain. You got the point. Sorry. Thanks, so Justice, I'm not going to explain. So, also very important, when we talk about the Namibian Constitution, Article 1.6 is saying that the Namibian Constitution is supreme. It is above all the law. It is above all conduct. You can't just because you are the president, you can't just do what you want. You are not above the law. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. In other words, all laws and conduct are subject to the Constitution. Just very quickly, I like this, maybe it's not so clear, it's very fast, I can't see it from there. But I will share my notes with you. The Nigerian Supreme Court, for example, said the following about constitutional supremacy. Who can read from there? Can you read?
The red.
Yeah, the red part.
Can you guys put your phones on silent, please, and keep using the phone while people are trying to inform you on important things, please?
Okay, can you read, ma'am?
Yeah.
The red part here.
First, and judicial must ultimately be traced to the Constitution. Secondly, the legislation. The legislation. No. That word, guys. Okay, let me just try to bring it. Legislative. Okay. Powers of the legislature.
You also can't see, maybe. Yeah? Can you see? Yeah.
Oh.
Firstly, all powers, legislature, executive, and judicial, must ultimately be traced to the Constitution. Secondly, the legislature, or the legislative powers of the legislature, cannot be exercised inconsistently with the Constitution. Where it is to exceed, is it exercised?
Yeah, exercise.
So exercised.
Okay, where it is so exercised, it is invalid to the extent of its inconsistency. Thirdly, where the Constitution, or what is that word? No, I can't see that word.
Okay, long story short. So, constitutional supremacy basically means, as it says there. Yes, as though we introduced the idea, you've got the legislature, you've got the judiciary, and you've got the, what did I not mention? The executive. Each one of these, for their own mandates and terrains, you can't do more what the Constitution allows you to do. Parliament, in other words, you can't make laws just as you please. If the Constitution, for example, in Article 6 is saying that no law shall be passed that impose death penalty, Article 6 says so. You can't, as a legislature, as a parliament, go and make a law that imposes death penalty. And that comes from the notion of constitutional supremacy. What the Constitution says is the ultimate. And no law or conduct is about what the Constitution says or allows. So, I'll give you, for example, relevant to our discussion. In about 5-6 years ago, we had an old law coming back from some apartheid days. And that was called the Squatter Proclamation, the Squatter Proclamation of 1985. This law, for example, said, everyone that illegally erects or erects a structure, a building structure, on someone else's land, that owner can come and demolish your shed, and then you do not have any right to go to court because your hands are dirty. This is what this proclamation said. Now, Mr. Shanika and 30 other people from Havana, they illegally settled on municipal land. The municipality used this old law to say, Mr. Shanika, they are illegal squatters, they must take off, and they actually broke down the sheds. And they used this provision. The Supreme Court said, we cannot have a constitution in Article 12 that says people have the right to go to court, and then we've got a proclamation that says you can't go to court. So that proclamation was found to be unconstitutional. That's what it means. Right? The next one, I'm not going to go there. Rule of law. So simple. Article 1 talks about the rule of law. Someone that can see clearly of the rule of law, the core values. What does that mean? Sorry, it's not so good. Can you read?
All people and institutions are subject to and accountable to the law that is fairly applied and enforced. There is no one who is above the law.
Can you read that again?
All people, institutions are subject to and accountable to law that is fairly applied and enforced. There is no one who is above the law.
I used to say, no one is under the law, but no one is also. No one will.
What will be next to the law?
So basically, all people and institutions, the police, it goes up to the law, to the fake churches. They can't just go and treat people they want. No, you are subject to the law. We are not saying you must go and make your fake churches. No, that's not what we're saying. Yes?
What does it mean when they say the president of the country is immune to be prosecuted? Does it basically imply that the president is above the law?
Very good question. Did we hear that?
Yes.
They say in the case of Namibia, a situation like Zuma cannot happen. In Namibia, a situation like Zuma that is currently in a court of law can never happen. Why? Because the Namibian constitution says, for as long as someone was a president or is a president, that person is immune from prosecution for any criminal conduct or any civil matter or civil whatever he commits during his period as a president. Practically, if Hage Geingob, and it's not going to happen, if Hage Geingob were today kill a person, he cannot go to court. Unless Parliament would revoke his immunity. But if Parliament doesn't do so, he can't go. That's basically what it is.
So we have to wait until his term is like with Zuma.
That's what I'm saying. That can't happen because it was what he did, that criminal conduct that he committed whilst he was a president.
So meaning after he's not a president, that's what they want to know.
Yeah, he can't.
Which means they want to say during and after until then. That's what we are saying.
Unless I got the question wrong. Herbert, you want to say?
During the time he's president, when he stepped down, one of his disability.
Yeah, but you see what we mean is that if you are complaining about what he committed during his term of office, then he's having that immunity, meaning he can't be prosecuted, or you can't go to court and claim damages for something which he committed during his term of office. After his term of office, obviously, then he doesn't have that. So you see, then he's now a U.S. citizen, and if he were to commit a crime during that period, then obviously he can.
I think maybe you should say this.
Yeah, that's the question.
What about the ambassador?
What about the ambassadors?
Yeah,
It's not so much. Very elegant question. With immunity, we basically mean it's like you can't be prosecuted for something whilst you are having the shield of immunity over you. That is why it's like someone is working in Zambia. He's an ambassador. There's a bag, and you carry that money in you, so you are having immunity. Unless, obviously, your immunity is taken away. But that's a story for another thing. It's a complicated thing that I don't want to confuse you. Very quickly, too.
Yeah, just wanted to add up. When the president travels, he also travels with he's having a brief, he can't be charged, can't be set by a police officer. So it's still a form of some sort of, which is not, because the president can also be used to steal money, because it's not allowed, his luggages are not allowed to be searched.
Yes.
So those are constitutional provisions that we also need to look at, because he can steal money, but his luggages are not allowed to be searched by his warrant.
Yes. I see a lot of hands, guys, but quickly, John. Only Parliament can revoke his, and we're going to talk about the constitutional amendments at the very end. But at the moment, the Namibian president, not just Hage Geingob, even you, if you were to get to be a president after you become 35, even you will be having this absolute immunity. And the question is, is it right to have that kind of immunity built into a constitution? I want to stop. And let us not go down this, guys. I'm going to be.
Oh, look. We are not debating whether it's right or not right. We just want to make sure that you understand what the constitution is saying. Just understand it. It's not about whether you like it or you don't like it. because that's another debate on another day. Yes. And John needs to finish, and then I'll give you a chance to discuss.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
Does that law also apply to as a public officer, like ministers?
No. Ministers does not have immunity. That's why 2 former ministers are currently in detention. So because ministers doesn't have that kind of immunity.
Okay, John, can you just go ahead? I will give you the chance to discuss. Don't ask questions now. We will give you a chance to discuss.
Wait, question?
Oh, yes, this one.
And of course, I was asked to zoom in on what Article 1, if you want to refer to it, Article 1.3 is talking about. Article 1.3 talks about, it says, state power is divided amongst the 3 branches of the state. And the 3 branches of the state generally is regarded as the I can't see so far. What is this one? It's the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. The legislature is a nice word for
judicial.
No. For the lawmakers. In other words, in our context, parliament. And in our context, the legislature consists out of 2 houses. And that is the National Assembly and the National Council. The function of the legislature in terms of the Constitution is to... Yeah, let me just complete my sentence. The primary function of the legislature is to make the laws of the country. Yes, sir?
In development studies, we were taught that there are 4 organs, which is the head of state, and then the executive. We were taught that there are 4 organs, which is the head of state, executive, legislature, and then judicial. That's what we were taught.
Okay, now let's consider whether that is correct. If we go to the provision of the Constitution, let's just check in the table of content that talks about where do we find the executive? Which article deals with the executive? Yeah, but there's a specific article which is Article 27. Now let's go to Article 27. Article 27, isn't it? Right. That is where they explain actually who is the executive. I don't know which provision is that? No, I'm talking about very specifically the executive. It's 35. But okay, I don't want to waste so much time, but no, sir, in terms of that, the president is not some loose structure on its own. The president is part of the executive. Which one is it? Oh, that one, excuse me. So the executive usually comprises of the president and his cabinet. In other words, the ministers and whatever. Not even deputy ministers. They constitute the executive. And the executive arm is responsible for the day-to-day running of the country. Whereas the legislature, as we said, the legislature, they are responsible for making the laws. So these guys make the law, these guys implement the law. And then the judiciary is interpreting and enforcing the law. That's basically what it is. But if we go to Article 5 of the Constitution, I'm going to summarize it for you. Article 5 is saying, confirming basically what we are saying in terms of the rule of law. It says that the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, and then it goes further, natural persons like you and me, and even juristic persons, companies, trade unions is a company, businesses. Article 5 is saying everyone must respect the rights of the people. So again, no one is above. That's basically what it means. How much time? I'm going to jump. The most, for me at least, the most important chapter in the Namibian Constitution is Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is saying that we've moved from a culture of authority to a culture of justification. We are coming from apartheid days where the colonial government can just do almost whatever they want to do. That is the culture of authority. I do so because I am the boss. I say so. However, Chapter 3 that talks about human rights says we've moved to a culture of justification, where every decision that is taken must be justified. We spoke about accountability. Very quickly, I don't want to take too much time. As I said, Chapter 3 is our Bill of Rights. It guarantees both civil and political rights. Your right to practice your religion, your right to practice your culture, the right to freedom of expression, and everything that goes together with it. The majority of the rules, or not the rules, the rights guaranteed in Chapter 3 are civil and political rights. The rights that really matters on a day-to-day basis, that deals with the issues of poverty, unemployment. Unfortunately, our Constitution, you will find at the back of the Constitution. And that is in Chapter 11, very specifically Article 95. And then they even went further. So it has been made redundant. Unlike the South African Constitution, they've got in their Bill of Rights, they've got the right to access to housing, access to water, proper sanitation, and even the right to food. You don't find that in our chapter. And that is the greatest shortcoming of our Constitution in respect of the Bill of Rights. I want to conclude almost. I'll mention this. I'm not going to repeat it. My second slide is dealing with chapters, because we are talking about democracy. If you go to Chapter 10 of the Namibian Constitution, it lists institutions which are supposed to support the democracy that the state is talking about. There are at least three institutions mentioned in Chapter 3. The first one is the Ombudsman, the next one is the Electoral Commission of Namibia, and the third one is the Anti-Corruption Commission. Some questions are asked. How truly independent can we really say are these state institutions? And we are asking this because if you look at their institutional setup, it's questionable. Administratively, it's questionable. And even budgetarily, it's questionable. Why do we say so? For example, the ACC is listed as a public agency. How can you be a public agency? In other words, you are subject to the rules of the Public Service Commission, and yet you've got the responsibility to oversee and be a watchdog of the very ministers that you are supposed to monitor. It's contradiction. Also, the budget of the Ombudsman is part of the Ministry of Justice. In other words, the Ombudsman can't just willy-nilly, and also it goes the same for the ACC. They can't appoint their own staff members. They must get approval from the Prime Minister and obviously also from the Public Service Commission. So how can you then have independent state institutions that are part of the government, which they are supposed to supervise and monitor? That is the contradiction. My last slide deals, and my last question is also, why, in your opinion, is it important that institutions that are supposed to support democracy, why is it important for these institutions to be truly independent? We want to conclude. I've seen the gentleman's hand, but let me just finish my last slide. Very importantly, the Constitution makes provision for the amendment of the Constitution. Article 31, and you can go on your own to read it. Article 131 is saying, when it comes to Chapter 3 of the Namibian Constitution, that chapter cannot be amended in a manner that takes away. It can only be amended in a way that improves it. Yeah? Then the other part is saying that if anyone wants to change any other provision in the Constitution, like what they've done to give a third term to the first president, to make the president appoint regional governors, they need at least 2/3 majority. That was my last one. We say article. Article 17. Okay, on page 10. Article 17, sub-article 1. The very first sentence. It says that all citizens have the right to participate in peaceful political activity intended to influence the composition and policies of the government. All citizens have the right to participate in peaceful political activity intended to influence the composition and policies of the government. In other words, the right to public participation is guaranteed in Chapter 3 of the Namibian Constitution. And then, in human rights law, in law terms, we say that human rights must be read together because they are interwoven. So that's why I want you to go to Article 21 of the Constitution. Article 21, sub-article 1A. must be read together with what we read in Article 17. The Constitution in Article 21, 1A says that all persons shall have the right to freedom of expression. And then it also goes to assemble, if you jump to number D, 1D, to assemble peaceably, not peacefully, peaceably. Peaceably and without arms. To do what? To express yourselves. And that is part of trying to influence what we've said in Article 17, with a view to influence government policies and the composition of them. That is what it says. Lastly, Article 95. Article 95 Article 95K. Article 95, if you read just the opening sentence of Article 95 before we jump to K, it says that the state shall actively promote and maintain the welfare of the people by adopting inter alia policies aimed at the following. And one of those is number K. The policies that are aimed at encouragement of the mass of the population through education and other activities through their organization to influence government policies by debating its decision. In other words, basically what I'm trying to say to the gentleman, when we talk about public participation, civic participation, it is not just an empty thing. It is something that is written. It is considered so important. The drafters of the Constitution considered it so important that it is guaranteed first and foremost as a fundamental human right in Article 70. For that reason, Article 95 tells the government, make policies, make laws that is meant to encourage the people to influence the government's policies. That is what we talk
about. Article 10, Chapter 3, the fundamental human rights in our Constitution, talks about no one should be discriminated against. That includes sexual orientation and all these things. And there is somehow a contradiction somewhere there when it comes to private law that talks about marriages and marriage between a male and a female. But then again, in the Constitution say that no one should be discriminated against on grounds of sexual orientation. So what is your take? Is this fundamental right really respected by the different acts or the proceeding of the Namibian judiciary or the justice system? The second question that I have is, you mentioned something like some things could be amended, especially around Chapter 3 of the Namibian Constitution. I'm worried about Article 16. It talks about right to land, or right to private property. If you want private property, there should be some kind of money involved, whether some kind of remuneration, some kind of payment in order to get. But how did these people come up with this article? Is it because that people who are protecting their land are the former colonizers, who are sort of protecting the land and say, no, we cannot give you the land because if you take the land back from us by looking at Chapter 3 of the Namibian Constitution, which we believe is imposed by the Europeans who wanted to take our land, especially as the Europeans.
genocide.
Okay, I'm coming. I'm so sorry. Just be short and people can all get a chance to say.
All right, Mr. Jauch. So, Mr. Jauch spoke about the three branches of the government: the executive, judiciary, and the legislature. Now, my question is, why does the executive board has a Ministry of Justice while it is holding on its own of the judiciary?
I don't understand.
Excuse me. The question is, why does the executive board have
The executive board.
The executive.
The executive.
Why is there a Ministry
of Justice while there is the third organ of the government, the judiciary?
Okay, good. Thank you. It's clear. Can you also pick up this booklet here, and go to this one?
Article what?
No, no, here. What page is this? I'm going to page 19 in this booklet.
David, I don't know whether this one goes to Comrade John or Herbert, but I was wondering, especially in relation to the topic of democracy, in relation to equitable distribution of natural resources in this country.
Okay, I want John to respond to some of them so we don't tie them up because I'm taking my time and we will not be able to also exhaust all the questions. Maybe we might come back to them. Just be short, John.
The very first question related to Article 10 that talks about non-discrimination and that looks like whether these rights, in my opinion, are respected. It's not so much for me to say whether it's respected or not. Article 25 of the Namibian Constitution says that if everyone is aggrieved, in terms of you feeling that your right is not respected, then Article 25 of the Constitution gives you the right to seek redress in a court of law. For example, it's like way back in 2002, the Supreme Court of Namibia said that gays and lesbians do not have a space in Namibia. 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, the High Court said, but how could the Supreme Court say those kind of things? It is outdated because everyone, in terms of Article 10, is equal before the law. So how can you have a group of people that you say that you may be discriminated based on your sexual orientation? And for that, people are going to appeal and ask the Supreme Court to reverse its decision that it took in 2002. So the question is, whoever is aggrieved must go to the court, because in terms of Article 5 that we said, the courts, even the courts, are obliged to respect the rights of the people. That's how I answer that. In terms of Article 16, that talks about the right to property, it's really a misnomer to say that what Article 16 is talking about is only about land. Article 16 is talking about also your cell phone. It says that everyone has the right to own and dispose whatever property is having. So in other words, no one can come and take your cell phone, your house, just willy-nilly. So property is more than just land. And then in terms of the land, Article 16 is saying the government of the Republic of Namibia is having the power to expropriate land if it is deemed to be considered in the public's interest. But the government is not using that. We've got the problem of land. People have lost their land during colonial times, but the government don't see it as a matter of priority. So it is not, the problem does not lie, in my opinion, with the Constitution. The problem is lying there's no political will to address the kind of problems that we are seeing in terms of land dispossession. Lastly, say again? Oh, okay.
Just continue.
Okay. My second last invention is like, why do we have, if I got the answer correctly, or the question correctly, why do we have a Minister of Justice, whereas we also have the judiciary on the other side? The Minister of Justice is not part of the judiciary. The Minister of Justice is making sure that justice issues that must be tackled by the executive is carried out. And the judiciary serves a very specific role. The judiciary is there to enforce the laws. Someone goes there and complains that my rights has been violated. And it is the judiciary, meaning the magistrates, the judges, they must then decide whether indeed there was a violation of someone's right. Equitable distribution of resources. It's a very tricky one. I honestly don't have this specific legal answer to that question. But again, under Article 95, it says that the government is there to look after the interests and the welfare of the people. So if you then are looking at the interests and welfare of the people, then it presupposes that you will equally distribute the resources, and you will take care, as the Constitution is saying, that you will take care that it is done in a manner that does not discriminate, and fairness for all. So it is constitutional principle.
But the reality, and that's Comrade Stalin's point. What are we doing? What are the resources concretely we're talking about? It's land, it's the fish, it's the mineral. These are the key natural resources. What are we doing right now with land? While the land conference is in progress, while people raise the issue of ancestral land for the first time in that forum, the government gives away 3 huge farms in Kopabis to a Russian billionaire. So, whose interest is served here? Is this the interest of the public interest? Is this the interest of Namibians? If we give away farmland, Iringi goes to Mexican, Dordalis goes to a Russian, the others are the Germans, and so on. The very people who were responsible for the genocide. So that's an ultimate political question. But the Constitution doesn't prevent it, because the executive feels they are entitled. They will tell us we were elected. Who elected you? But in terms of the spirit of Namibian interest, clear violation. The second one, the fish. What are we doing here? We auctioned last year, but generally, instead of saying the fish, because you need huge boats, so you sell your quota to a Norwegian, to an Icelandic, to a Spanish, or Russian or German company who catches the fish. And they give you just a little bit, a few million, so that you are happy. But the bulk of the profit is going to those. These are criminal organizations, like this Fish Claw Icelandic company. We've done that since independence. So here's the second point, again a political question. Why are we not controlling our resources for public benefit? All the money goes into a public fund, not individual pockets. Minerals. If we do not have the money to mine ourselves, we can use the same principle like with fish. Companies only get the right to take these minerals if they pay a significant amount into a public fund to benefit governments. And over time, we must take over those industries ourselves. This is the only way, and that's a political question. The law and the constitution doesn't help us much. We need to push it, and that's where the question of activism comes in. Like you said it so nicely, what is the issue? Who is affected? Campaign strategy, involve the media, get public support. And after the lunch break now, we will hear from 3 concrete examples in Namibia. And we hope that will conclude the day nicely to see, based on all our legal provisions, we still don't have control over the economy of this country. That one Russian owns more land than all of us in this world together. And you're all Namibians. In fact, besides me, you're all historically disadvantaged Namibians. So why are you not controlling that land, and it's a Russian, and a Mexican, and a German, and so on?
Okay. Thank you so much, Herbert. Into our constitutional rights when it comes to issue of participation, activism, really public involvement, and all of that. And also kind of weigh the pros and cons why things do happen to us, because we become passive and we don't take up the issues ourselves, and sometimes we're just lamenting, complaining, but we are not doing anything about anything. And I think this session has been critical in basically setting the stage in terms of us understanding not only what is our rights, but also how do we go about exercising those rights, so that we are not like people who are only know something, but we don't put into action what we know.